The containment facility on Station Gamma 7 housed the galaxy's most dangerous specimens. Behind reinforced walls of crystalline steel, creatures from 1,000 worlds waited in chemical sleep or energy cages. Most were predators. Some were weapons. A few defied classification entirely. The Dracnir was all 3. Commander Vex stood before the observation window, his forearms crossed in a gesture that signaled deep unease among his species. The creature beyond the transparent barrier was magnificent and terrible. 20 feet of scaled muscle, 6 limbs ending in claws that could shear through starship hulls, and a mind that had outsmarted every containment protocol the Galactic Union had devised. How many handlers has it killed? Asked the human standing beside him. Vex turned one eye toward the newcomer. Lieutenant James Parker was unremarkable by human standards. Average height, brown hair, a face that would disappear in any crowd. The Galactic Union had been accepting human military contractors for only 3 years, and Vex remained unconvinced of their value. 17 handlers across 4 stations, Vex replied. It killed 3 more researchers who thought they could study it safely. The Dracnir recognizes intelligence. It plays along until it finds weakness, then it strikes. James nodded slowly, studying the creature through the window. The Dracnir appeared to be sleeping, its massive form coiled in the center of the containment cell. But James noticed the slight movement of its head, the way one crystalline eye tracked their position. Why keep it at all? James asked. The Dracnir is the apex predator of Krell-9, a world we need to terraform for the Union's expansion. We cannot proceed until we understand how to neutralize this species. Every attempt to use neural dampeners, psionic controls, or behavioral modification has failed. The Dracnir adapts faster than we can develop countermeasures. So you called for a human. Vex's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement or disdain. The Council believes your species has unique qualifications for working with dangerous creatures. Your homeworld's history suggests a certain recklessness when it comes to predators. James smiled. We prefer to call it creativity. The next morning, James entered the observation room alone. Standard protocol required 3 armed guards and a psionic dampener for any interaction with the Dracnir. James had requested none of these things. Vex had granted the request only because 17 dead handlers meant they had nothing left to lose. James sat in a chair facing the window. The Dracnir watched him. Neither moved for an hour. Then James pulled out a sandwich and began eating his lunch. The creature's head tilted slightly. This routine continued for 6 days. James would arrive, sit, and go about mundane human activities. He read reports. He ate meals. Once, he fell asleep in the chair. The Dracnir observed everything with those unsettling crystalline eyes. But it never moved from its position. On the 7th day, the Dracnir stood and approached the window. Vex watched from the security center, his claws tapping nervously against the console. Every instinct screamed that the creature was about to strike, that they were moments away from losing another handler. But James simply looked up from his tablet and met the Dracnir's gaze. They stared at each other for 10 minutes. Then James raised one hand and pressed it against the window. The Dracnir leaned forward until its snout nearly touched the barrier. Its breath fogged the transparent surface. What is he doing? Demanded Vex. The station's xenobiologist, a Thalian named Rix, studied the readings. Nothing that makes sense. The Dracnir's neural patterns show curiosity, but not aggression. The human's cortisol levels are normal. He is not afraid. Impossible. Everyone is afraid of the Dracnir, not this human apparently. James began spending entire shifts in the observation room. He talked to the creature, though his words were meaningless to a being that communicated through pheromones and subsonic vibrations. He showed it images on his tablet, pictures of Earth, of animals, of landscapes the Draknir would never see. The transformation was gradual but undeniable. The Draknir began responding to James's presence. When he arrived, it would move to the window. When he left, it would watch until he disappeared from view. The creature that had killed 17 handlers now waited like a dog at a door. "I want to enter the containment cell," James said during a briefing in week 3. Vex's response was immediate and emphatic. "Absolutely not. It trusts me. It is a predator. It does not experience trust as you understand it." James leaned back in his chair. "Commander, with respect, that's where you're wrong. Every handler you've sent in treated the Draknir like a problem to be solved. They came with weapons, with restraints, with the attitude that the creature needed to be dominated. You told me it recognizes intelligence. Well, it also recognizes intent. Your intent means nothing when you are being torn apart. Then put me in a protective suit. Give me an emergency extraction system. But let me try." Vex wanted to refuse. Every regulation, every safety protocol, every logical calculation said this was suicide. But the Council was demanding results, and 3 years of failure had exhausted all conventional options. He agreed to one condition. James would enter the cell for exactly 5 minutes while wearing combat armor and accompanied by armed drones programmed to extract him at the first sign of aggression. James accepted the terms. The day of the attempt, half the station crowded into the security center to watch. Betting pools formed over how long the human would survive. The optimists gave him 2 minutes. James walked through the airlock into the containment cell. The Draknir stood at the far end, perfectly still. The combat armor made James clumsy, but he moved slowly, keeping his hands visible and his body, language non-threatening. He stopped 10 feet from the creature and sat down cross-legged on the floor. The Draknir tilted its head. Its claws flexed, digging slight grooves into the metal floor. Then, in a movement that made every observer gasp, it lowered itself to the ground and laid its massive head on its forelimbs. James reached into a pouch on his belt and pulled out a piece of synthesized protein. He had learned the Draknir's dietary requirements and spent the past week having the station fabricate food to its specifications. He rolled the protein across the floor. The Draknir sniffed it, then ate it with surprising delicacy. Its eyes never left James. They sat together until the 5 minutes expired. When the airlock opened, James stood slowly and walked backward toward the exit. The Draknir watched him go, but made no move to follow. Vex met him in the decontamination chamber. That proved nothing. You fed it. Predators can be temporarily sated. Tomorrow, I go in without the armor. You will not. Commander, I just sat 10 feet from the most dangerous creature in Union custody, and it laid down. That is not the behavior of something waiting to attack. That is the behavior of something waiting to understand. The argument raged for 2 hours. Vex cited regulations. James cited results. Finally, the station's chief medical officer made an observation that ended the debate. "Let him try," she said. "If he is right, we gain the ability to manage an entire world. If he is wrong, we lose 1 human contractor. The exchange rate favors the attempt." Her cold pragmatism settled the matter. James entered the cell the next day, wearing only his standard uniform. No armor, no weapons, no drones. Just a human and a creature that had killed 17 people. He sat in the same spot. The Draknir approached. Every observer held their breath. The creature was close enough to strike, close enough to kill James in seconds. Instead, it lowered its head and pressed its snout against James's chest. James raised one hand and touched the Draknir's scales. The creature made a sound none of them had heard before, a low, rumbling vibration that resonated through the cell. Rix checked her instruments frantically. That is a pacification signal, she breathed. The Dracneer uses that sound to calm its young. It has never made that sound in captivity before. In the months that followed, James and the Dracneer became inseparable. He learned its language of vibrations and pheromones. He taught it to respond to simple commands, not through domination, but through mutual respect. When Union scientists needed biological samples, James was there to keep the Dracneer calm. When they needed to relocate it to a better facility, James walked beside it the entire way. The breakthrough came when James proposed a radical solution to the Krell 9 problem. Instead of eliminating the Dracneer, they could work with them. Use humans as intermediaries to establish peaceful coexistence. Transform the apex predators into partners in terraforming, rather than obstacles to overcome. The council was skeptical until they saw the recordings. A human walking freely among creatures that had been deemed unkillable. A Dracneer responding to human direction without restraints or controls. Commander, Vex found James one evening in the observation room, sitting with his back against the containment window. The Dracneer was pressed against the barrier from inside, as close as the separation allowed. "I owe you an apology," Vex said. "I doubted your species' value to the Union." James smiled. "You doubted humans could control the uncontrollable." "Yes. That's because we never tried to control it, Commander. We just tried to understand it. There's a difference." Vex settled beside him, watching the Dracneer through the transparent barrier. "Your species is strange. You befriend what should terrify you." "Maybe," James agreed. "Or maybe we just recognize that TH